Hey guys, thank you so much for joining. I am extremely proud of that young woman, Elia Meltzer, that is joining me today, and you will understand why I am so proud of her on many levels. And I will explain to you a little more about that. If you don't know me yet, so I'm Kevin Morrow, aka Mr. Mingle. I'm a social catalyst and I help fellow misfits uncover their tribe by embracing their uniqueness. But today is not about me. Today is all about Elia and how Elia has been surviving many things. And just to be fair, I'd like to add a kind warning. Guys, today we will explore some tough, rough, challenging topics like depression, suicide. So, not so bright for some people. So, if you feel you can't handle it, then okay, maybe you could find another channel that will be much more focusing on light and Care Bears and unicorns. But the idea is, guys, we want to stay as positive, hopeful, and loving as possible. So those topics are hard, but they are very important. Many people are going through that, and many people need support for that. So we really want to give some light on those important topics and stop, shoving them under the rug, because people deserve to know what it's like, and people deserve to know there's light for real at the end. You don't have to struggle all your life. There are ways, beautiful ways, to be thriving instead. So we want to be positive, but we will also be real and genuine, because yes, when you're in the middle of it, it sucks. And just want another warning, probably this episode will have some swearing and some bad words, right? Because let's be honest, this topic is calling it. So if you can't handle it, once again, better change channels. But okay, now let's focus on Elia. And before I introduce you, Elia, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, my journey. Why is it echoing?
I'm not sure. Try again.
Okay. So hello everyone. Thank you so much for watching the channel, and for watching this episode of Misfits. Happy Misfits. Hello everyone. Basically, this is all about my journey in mental health and mental illness, and trying to help other people with their journeys with mental health and mental illness, trying to figure out how can you become the best version of yourself, how can you deal with all of these turmoils and tough emotions. So that's what we're here to talk about today, and how did I get out of it, and how can you get out of it too.
I love that. That's the idea. That's the hope I was talking about. And so I read a little bit of your profile, Elia, and I know you said you were fond of entrepreneurship and fast-paced work environments.
Yes.
And at the same time, you're really into nature and animals, which
Yes.
in my book doesn't make a lot of sense. Like those two are like, wow, that's a big stretch. So I'm super curious. So before we start with the real questions, I'm really curious to know, how do you make them work together?
So I would describe myself as a curious soul. I would describe myself as someone that likes to explore different things, understand how things work, why things are the way that they are. And so I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I like working in fast-paced environments just because I tend to be a very creative person, and I am a problem solver. I also really like nature just because I find peace and tranquility in nature with my mental health and mental illness. I find a lot of inspiration from nature. One of the ways that I deal with my mental health is by creating things like jewelry and accessories, and being tactile with my hands. And so I find a lot of inspiration from the world around me. So that's
I love that.
on my channel, or on my
that's That's a very, very interesting way to bridge those two sides. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, before we start, guys, so you're most welcome to comment and ask questions. Just so you know, if you're on your phone, we won't be able to see your comments during the show, but we will see them afterwards. But you still can say hello and comment, and we are so happy that you are following. So just for now, we have Omar, we have Thoraya, Jane, Jackie. So far, at least in the comments, you might be even more, but we can. Oh, Aisha just joined. Awesome. So we're now getting started, and I would like to go not in a smooth way, but right into the core, right? I'd like to start with a very hard question. What was your big why to choose life?
That's a good question. And it's a complicated question. There was a pivotal moment in my life where I was experiencing a lot of suicidal thoughts. I was self-harming. I was in and out of the hospital. And there came a pivotal moment in my life where I had to make a choice. Either I successfully die this time, or I suck it up and I tell doctors and my family at what was really going on and tried to finally communicate effectively what was happening to me. And so I ended up choosing life because I didn't actually want to die. I just didn't want to be in pain anymore. I also chose life. I chose to live because I knew that other people were happy and not experiencing life the way that I was. And so I wanted to understand why they chose life, why they were happy, why they could go about the world and not suffer the way that I was suffering. So I knew that it was possible to live without the depression, to live without the anxiety disorders. So I wanted to at least give it a shot, and I'm still here today.
And I love what you said so much for many reasons. And just so you know, folks, so I've been struggling with depression as well, and I will be dancing with it until the end of my life, right? Like in the case for most people. And I also thought about ending myself. So we're on the same page, Elia and I know many other people have fights or dances or whatever you call it with depression. And actually, I have, probably quite unusual take on depression. To me, it has been a boon. It has been a very powerful trait of me. And it invited so much growth to me. But we will cover that. That's the thing. There are so many ways to deal with depression, so many different types of depression. We probably won't be able to really go too deep into that, but just wanted to mention that it's not just Elia. You're absolutely not alone. We are at the very least two in this room about it, and it doesn't have to be horrible. Or probably it is, at times, but it doesn't have to end like that. And I'd like to come back to what you just mentioned, that you made a choice. And I feel it's one of the most beautiful gifts there is with that, with suicide thoughts. That many people say, I don't have a choice. Many people say, I had to do this, I couldn't, do any different. Actually, I truly believe we always have a choice, or actually multiple choices. And really, choosing life is a choice, and many people take it for granted. Many people take life for granted and they don't even consider doing otherwise. And actually, being confronted to that choice can be extremely powerful. and can be extremely liberating and bring a lot of goodness. It doesn't have to be dark. It doesn't have to be gloomy. It doesn't have to be awful. It can be, but actually, it also can fertilize your growth in ways you have no idea. So yeah, just wanted to add that very, very powerful thing about the choice. And yeah, I will what you mentioned also, you didn't want to be in pain. I believe it's very important. I believe, and that's really a belief, right? So I'm not an expert in that, but I believe that people that take their own life, usually they don't do that because they want to.
Yeah.
It's just because it becomes unbearable. They can't cope with what they are going through anymore. And it's the easiest, fastest, most effective way that they can see at that moment. And that's it. It doesn't mean that they really want to. Just, oh, please make it stop. Please make it stop. And that, okay, that's the issue. Probably the easiest, fastest way to make it stop is to go that way. But yeah, I love that you made that other choice, and many people do make that other choice to choose life. And you know what? Okay, it might take longer, it might still be painful, but there's so much goodness on the other end. And yeah, let's give life a chance.
I would say that it's for those of us who have experienced suicidal thoughts, it's not that we want to die, right? It's not that we want to like simply not exist anymore. It's not that we don't want to be here in the physical world. It's just that we don't want to exist in this way. And battling depression, whether it's because of situations that you're going through or it's more on a biological level with brain chemistry, it's hard. It's hard to overcome. It's a lot easier to break an arm and put a cast on your arm than it is to treat depression, anxiety, trauma, bipolar, whatever it is that you happen to be dealing with. It's much harder to treat. It's much harder to understand. And so it's not that we want to die. It's just that we want to exist differently. It's that we want to be in a space where we don't have to have the internal screaming, the internal crying, the internal bleeding all the time. Where like we can smile and we can laugh the way that I am right now, but on the inside, you're just falling apart. Masking is also an important topic as well when it comes to mental health and mental illness.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I feel like what Thoraya just mentioned, and yeah, it depends on how serious it is. And yeah. I'm wondering how yourself were you able to rebuild your mental health, hope, and self-esteem? Because choosing life is one thing, but crawling back to life, fighting back to life is another thing. It's much easier said than done. Once you make that choice, you still have to do all the hard work to get there. So how were you able to do that?
It was a struggle, for sure. Basically, the whole process of getting better is communication. You have to communicate with someone, preferably a doctor, a professional, that something isn't right. And you have to communicate what isn't right and the severity of the problem and how it's affecting you. The problem is that your brain isn't meant to communicate that way, right? Silly example. When's the last time you ate French toast or a hot dog or pizza? In reality, you can give an estimate, but you can't be precise. But when you're talking about intrusive thoughts and nightmares and panic attacks, you need accurate information on how often these things are happening. Because if you cannot give accurate information, then you're not going to get effective treatment. You're not going to, as they say in math class, garbage in, garbage out. So if you're not communicating well, then you're not going to get an effective response. And so I looked online, and I looked on the internet and what was going on, and I was trying to find a tool. I was trying to find a resource that could help me figure out how often these things were happening over time, so then I could talk to my doctors. And I found nothing. I found that there was nothing on the internet that was comprehensive, that gave me a bird's eye view of my life over time, comparing data side by side. So I had to create something for myself, and I started bullet journaling. For those of you who don't know, bullet journaling is like planner life plus like doodling, and I don't know. It is what you want it to be, but most people like make planners and trackers and things like that in like a doodly kind of style, usually on like a grid kind of notebook. So I started doing that and spent hours every month making the next month's spread, which was not a good use of my time. And I knew that if I were to ever reignite in my depression, if I were to ever fall back into my depression, I wouldn't be able to keep up with the planner. So then I talked to my university at the time, the University of Akron, and I got some funding to hire some fellow students in graphic design and create a pre-made version that would allow a user to track their symptoms and their habits over time. And that's what has now become true self-care.
I love that. That's so powerful, and I love that you had help from your university. It's not always easy to get funds, even for great causes and all. Jane here know a thing or two about that, that's very fascinating, and I love that you got back up. And just I want to say hey to Michelle that joined us. So that's beautiful. We are even more, and I know, guys. Once again, this topic is not an easy one. These topics are not easy, but it's so important to address them because so many people are suffering silently. And exactly as you mentioned, Elia, one of the most important points to get out of it is to communicate, whether with other people or basically to yourself through journaling. And I believe, probably somewhere between both is the most effective when you are able to articulate better with the help of others and articulate better for your own sake. It's extremely important. So staying silent while suffering is definitely not helping. It might be part of a process. Personally, when I have some depression times, I hide into my cave. I just disappear, and I need some alone time. And actually, it helps. Some alone time for myself, to me, it helps. But it doesn't have to stay too long. Otherwise, it becomes counterproductive.
That said, though, there is a fine line between recharging and like the introvert need to recharge and like get your energy back and process your emotions versus self-isolation, because one is helpful and one is detrimental, and there's a fine line where you cross from one into the other. And I used to self-isolate, and sometimes I still do, in order to process my emotions, but I have to remember to get back into society, or at least come out of my bedroom and downstairs and interact with my family, so that way I'm not going into an unhealthy place of being alone in my thoughts. Because I find that when you're alone too much too often, that's when the negative thoughts start to get louder, and then you're no longer benefiting from the alone time, you're actually hurting yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it would be the case for everything, right? Too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like if anyone drinks 10 liters or 10 gallons of water at once, we will die on the spot. Nobody can handle that amount. But water is one of the most precious and the best resource there is, right? Water is one of the most important thing that you can put on your body. But even that, too much quantity of it, you will just die on the spot. It becomes poison. So I feel it's very important what you mentioned. And so hopefully this conversation will be helpful both for people that are having some depression or suicide thoughts, or people that have no clue, absolutely don't understand what it's like and would like to know a little bit better, because maybe one of your loved ones is going through that, and then you might be able to help a little better. Or maybe you lost someone very dear to you because of that, and you'd like to understand, and you'd like some help and guidance to help you through your grief, because of that specific type of grief is very special, I believe. And I lost several family members and loved ones taking their own life. So I know that pain very, very well. And it's a very special type of pain and grief.
Yeah. And that's why I wear this semicolon. So I don't know if you can see, it's kind of cut off, but this is a semicolon sweatshirt that I often wear. And the semicolon is a symbol for suicide awareness and for suicide survival. The idea is that instead of a period ending your sentence, ending your life, the semicolon ends that chapter in your life, but then you continue. So instead of ending the sentence, you choose to continue. So it's not a comma because you wanted to end the sentence, but you chose to continue on with a semicolon. And so this is just like one of the sweatshirts that I have available for sale on my website. I like this one just because it's like letting go of the pain. It's letting go of that type of life with the birds like coming out of the semicolon. But then I have different versions available as well.
And yeah, I love that symbol. It makes a lot of sense. I believe it is very, very powerful. And I probably will see if we have time. I have a kind of similar way to look at things. Even though I'm a giant city boy, right? I don't have much connection with nature. I know a part of myself is craving for nature, but I don't treat myself enough with that. But anyway, I still inspire myself a lot with nature, and especially with seasons. I believe like seasons are extremely powerful in their symbolism. And I feel there's a lot of power in winter. And a winter is a beautiful symbol to me of depression or down times. And actually, that's the thing. The actual winter with the cold and the snow blanket and the apparent death usually triggers many people. Many people have seasonal depression, right? Yeah. I'm the same. Like the time between Christmas and New Year's Eve usually is hell on earth to me. It has been for several decades. But at the same time, actually, it nurtures me a lot. And I have a giant phoenix tattooed in my back for a reason. I have a lot of cycles, and I tend to burn myself to the ground to be reborn by my own means. And actually, I feel that this winter is extremely powerful because winter comes before spring for a reason. Winter fertilizes spring. Yeah. Without winter, you have no spring actually. Spring would have no juice. So there are ways to reframe things. As I mentioned earlier, I grew so much from my depression times. I wouldn't be the man I am now if I had, some flat, no roller coaster, all flat and all good all the time. Yeah, I would be very, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel I might be much more boring and less interesting. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but at least in the feeling like it added some depth. Like it helped me reframe my entire reality, reframe many of my beliefs, drop some of the rules, like Vishen Lakhiani says, bullshit rules, societal bullshit rules. I was like, you know what? I don't want to play with those anymore. I want to play by my rules. I want to build my world the way I will enjoy for real. Exactly as you mentioned, what the point of living if you're living in total pain? The idea is really, okay, let's choose life, but let's choose a life that feels great to be lived, right? Let's choose a wonderful life, a thriving life. Of course, nobody wants a painful, horrible life, but we don't have to settle for that. We get to choose. We get to choose life, and we get to choose what kind of life we want. And it might take time. We might have to be patient and connect with the right people at the right time. But we can make that, especially with the right kind of guidance, with the right kind of help.
Agreed.
At least, once again, it's a belief. I like to push my beliefs on anybody. Okay, let's continue. So just once again, an invitation, guys. If you have any questions for Elia or any comments, feel free to to comment here, to ask your questions. And okay, no questions yet. So I will continue with mine. And I'd love to know, how does connecting with nature help you nurture and ground yourself? So you touch a little bit based on that, but I feel it's a big topic for you. So I'd love for you to explore that a little more.
I'm a very spiritual person. And I believe in the power of nature. I believe that there are forces at play that we cannot see. I believe in God, but not in the traditional sense. I believe that there is both a masculine and a feminine in the divine, and that there must be both in order for the world to exist the way that it does. I believe that water is the source of life. Like if you were to take the essence of life and turn it into something physical, it would be water, because water is the one thing that all life needs in order to survive. Whether it's both multi-celled organisms or single-celled organisms, liquid is needed in order to thrive. And so I find a lot of comfort and peace in nature. There is a very large oak tree in my yard. It's one of the oldest oak trees in the city where I live. We've nicknamed it the Avatar tree, like the blue alien movie that has that special tree. It's massive, and I go to the tree and I cry, and I let out my pain. And I talk to the tree. Well, more like I talk into the universe. I don't hear voices. I'm psychotic, but I find it helps to voice things out into the universe and to find comfort in being barefoot in the grass. I find that we wear shoes and socks all the time, which is fine. But organisms were not meant to be that way. There is something to be said about just standing barefoot in the sunshine, in the grass, of grounding yourself. And I find that when you take a pause and you listen to the birds sing, or you just listen to the traffic noises, and you go back to your senses because you're barefoot in the grass, there's something to be said about that. So I find nature very soothing, very inspiring, just because I am a very spiritual person. I am one organism amongst a sea of organisms. It is my personal opinion that humans are nothing special out there. We are animals because we don't photosynthesize. But that's just my opinion, and so we have our duty to fulfill in the cycle of life, in the food chain, in a force at play among many forces that interact with each other in in nature. And so I find peace in knowing that I'm a puzzle piece of a larger picture.
I love that. Yeah, it definitely speaks to me, and we'll see if we have time to explore that. I love playing with elements, not just water, but different elements. I won't bore you with the detail, but I have a very personal element
Just
table.
don't
Let's
play
see.
with fire. Fire is dangerous.
Fire is basically my base is the Chinese concept, actually the 5 elements from China plus void from Japan, and it works amazingly well. But we'll see. Maybe we'll get back to that if you're interested. But for now, let's stay on course. Let's stay
Yes.
on the topic. And I've seen Jaina has a question, and I'd like you to answer that one because it's a
Sure.
very important one.
I'm not a parent. Let's be very clear. I do not have children, but as a former child who struggled with mental illness and put my parents through the ringer, there is some advice I can give, and that is to create a space in your family where dialogue is welcomed and accepted. Now that there's a fine line between welcoming dialogue and being invasive. So don't cross that line. But when a child is struggling with mental health, mental illness, suicidal thoughts, self-harming behavior, your child has a door slammed in your face, basically, right? You cannot see in. It's not a window where you can see what's going on inside their heads. And so to create a space of dialogue, to say that it's okay to tell me these things. You don't have to hide these things from me. Like, I want to know what you are experiencing. Because children have the capacity to understand that what they are going through will hurt you. They don't want to burden you with their problems. Now, you as an adult might not see it that way, but they do. Right? I did not want to tell my parents that I was feeling suicidal because I did not want to worry them. I did not want to cause them more suffering because I was suffering myself. I knew that if I were to tell them my problems, that it would hurt them, and I didn't want to hurt them, so I didn't tell them. So to create a space where a child can share their darkness with you, and know that, like, it will shock you, but it will not upset you. And creating that a very specific space is very important. I live stream on TikTok, and there was an adolescent in my live stream who was commenting while I was live streaming. 12-year-old from England, dealing with suicidal thoughts, dealing with a severe insomnia, did not want to tell their parent about what was going on, and did not want to be hospitalized, was terrified of the hospital system. They also live in the UK, so their hospital system is different than here in the US. And so that their parent had not created a space where the child could feel comfortable sharing that darkness within them, for fear that they would cause their parent pain. And they did not understand that by dying, they would cause their parents even more pain than by sharing. So how you do that is up to you. Good luck in creating that space. But by opening up yourself, I feel is a good way to let them open themselves to you, right? So it's a reciprocal kind of thing. Now, I'm no expert in the field. I'm just a patient trying to help other patients, but that would be my advice.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I believe you're much more than just a patient, right? That you became your own expert, and you might not be traditionally a trained expert, but still you definitely know your stuff. And what is probably even more important, you're trying to help. You're doing your very best to help others, and that's a big one. I like to come back to something very important that you mentioned, and that is connected to what Jane just said, about the judgment. You talked about sharing their darkness, and there's something very, very powerful. And that's kind of the downside of personal growth or personal development. That we focus on positivity, we focus on evolving, becoming a better person. And sometimes, not always, but some trends, some teachers, some gurus, or whatever you call them, they push so much toward the positivity that they can kind of discard even the possibility of darkness. They all going towards the light. And we tend to have that, right? It's linked to so many other sets of beliefs, like the hell versus heaven in Christianity, and you should only go towards heaven, and even looking at hell is absolutely prohibited, and you will be burnt alive in this very life already if you just make a move. But then the thing, acknowledging our darkness, I believe, is extremely important, and not judging ourselves and not judging others for our darkness, for that kind of darkness, whatever you call it, right? But
I would say that you cannot appreciate the light unless there are shadows. The light is useless unless it illuminates the darkness. The darkness is necessary. There are parts of us that we don't want to share with other people. And mental health and suicidal behavior and self-harming behavior is part of that darkness, is part of the side of ourselves where we think we're broken, we think we're not functioning well, we think that we are shitty humans that don't deserve to be here. Excuse my language. It's hard to articulate sometimes. But we have to share that, because if we don't share that, if we don't expose that this is reality, then we cannot appreciate the good moments either. Like I don't appreciate the good times when I don't also appreciate that I had bad times too. So in order for light to be enticing, there must also be darkness.
I so deeply agree with that. And it's extremely important to realize that, to accept that, and to realize there is nothing wrong with having depression or suicide thoughts. It doesn't make you broken. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you any other bad word you could use for that. It just a part, a sliver of your darkness, which is totally normal, and actually that can serve you beautifully well. Recently I had a beautiful meditation time with a friend, a fellow coach, a few months ago, and I was able to come up with a wonderful vision, and so it was a visualization, and I was able to manifest my darkness and like what's getting on in my way, right? All what I feel so frustrating, all what I feel, my shortcomings or flaws or weaknesses, all embodied in a dragon made out of darkness. And for a little time, I thought about fighting and killing that dragon, like getting rid of what was going on and what was blocking my way and what was making me unable to really spread my wings. And actually I realized, hey, you know what? It's absolutely not what I want. What I want is befriend the dragon. I want to ride the dragon, but not like dominate the dragon or kill the dragon. I want to make it my friend and enjoy wonderful adventures with it. And the fact that it comes from darkness doesn't make it bad. Like that beautiful, super cliche, super corny, but still extremely powerful Tao symbol. right? The yin yang, the white and the dark, all mixed together with some darkness in the white and some light in the dark, right? And that's the thing. Exactly as you mentioned, that there's some feminine energy and masculine energy. It's all one. It's all, on the broader picture, it's all part of the same big whole, wholeness. And I feel that trying to separate the darkness, and especially judging the darkness and trying to erase the darkness, I believe is a very bad move. Actually, it can serve us so very well. It doesn't mean it will be pleasant. Darkness usually still sucks when you're in the middle of it. Granted, so darkness might not be pleasant to be experienced, but still there's so much depth and so much growth hidden in that.
To address some of your comments, I want to say that it is quantifying the darkness helps. How and since you have a child that is dealing with some turmoil that I have also dealt with and am still dealing with, it's important to quantify and data. It sounds so silly, it sounds dumb, but it's really important. Like, how often are you feeling this way? How often do you have these thoughts? How often do you cry? How often do you stay up all night or cry yourself to sleep or have panic attacks, right? Quantifying these things. And I do it through the planner that I sell. You can do it the way that you wish. Maybe you buy two and then you do it with your son. And by quantifying it, by seeing how often it happens over the course of time, you can appreciate the lights, you can appreciate the good times by physically seeing, right? My little trusty planner right here, turning to a different page. Physically seeing how often these things are happening, and are things changing over the course of time? That's how my brain works, and that's how I can appreciate the lights, appreciate the good times, is by understanding that I am getting better, or maybe I'm not getting better. Maybe I am regressing and I need to talk to my doctors about what's going on in my life, that there are these new variables that are affecting my mental illness and that we need to address them. Or maybe it's not my psychiatrist, maybe it's a therapist. Maybe I need to talk to my parents, like saying, hey, we need to sit down and have this conversation. The data shows that there is a shift, and you can physically see the difference between what's going on in your life. Food for thought.
Yeah, no, I love that you mentioned that, and that's the thing. So, because we are all absolutely unique and different. Obviously there's no cookie cutter recipe to serve us all, right? Even if we have similar experiences, it makes sense. So maybe for someone at some time in their life, seeing a psychiatrist will help them better, or maybe someone else, or the same person at another time, maybe a psychologist would help better, or just talking to that parents, or seeing a shaman, or whatever serves you, or just connecting with Mother Nature and doing ayahuasca or whatever you could feel appealed to. Like, we're all different. So if what you're doing is not working, well, guess what? Maybe you haven't found the right therapist in that specific field, or maybe you could broaden your horizons and try something else and look at that. Maybe it could help. And thank you so much. So we can see your name. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's Michelle again or another LinkedIn user, but I'm so glad that this conversation is helpful to you. And so we're slowly but surely going towards the end of this wonderful conversation. And once again, thanks Thanks a lot, Elia, for that, for your vulnerability and for your wisdom around those very challenging topics. And so, guys, if you have any questions you'd like Elia to answer, now is the time. Because maybe in 15 minutes it won't be the case anymore. And before we get maybe some questions, I'd like and you mentioned talking about your parents, but any people around you have been able to help you, in your journey through health and to thriving in your social life, maybe some close friends, or maybe even sometimes random strangers. It's wild how sometimes strangers are even more helpful than close friends. So it's very interesting.
While dealing with my issues in high school, I did not perceive people as my friends. I don't know how to have friends because my depression, my mental illness kind of stunted that social aspect of my life. I have pen pals, but I don't hang out with anyone. I never had sleepovers really, other than like the obligatory, like, oh, all the girls in my class need to like celebrate my birthday party type of thing. I don't know how to have friends other than pen pals. And so I find that strangers, when you talk to strangers about your problems, they tend to give good advice just because they are a neutral party who have their own problems, who have no idea who you are or what kind of rumors are spoken about you, and they tend to give good advice. I am involved in the Native American community, in the First Nations community here in North America, and so a lot of my support group are Indigenous and have a very spiritual side to them because I tend to resonate with them. So if you are part of a community either with organized religion or not organized, I don't know if you're atheist, for the viewers out there, but if you find people whom you resonate with on a spirituality, religious kind of level, then the support changes, and it's like attacking the problem from different points of view, if you will, or assisting the problem from different points of view. And so a lot of my pen pals, a lot of my friends who aren't physically in my life have been great influences. A lot of them are like spiritual advisors or teachers with like different crafts. I do bead, I do make jewelry and things like that. So people who also make things that I make have been very influential in my healing journey. Family has been influential in my healing journey. If my parents hadn't created a space for me to talk about my problems, I would be dead. Plain and simple. If it wasn't for my Northern Cheyenne friends, who are a group of Native Americans out in Montana, and if they hadn't supported me and showed me like a glimpse into their world, of their spirituality, of their customs, I would be dead. I wouldn't have come clean. I wouldn't have chosen life. So those are the people who helped me get back to thrive once again.
Yeah, and we are so very glad that you had the chance to meet those people. I don't believe in coincidences, so I feel they were on your path for a very good reason. So that's wonderful, and I love how you celebrate their cultures through your handicraft. That's beautiful. So actually, we had a question to me. So I will just answer it real quick before we get back to you, because it was really about men around mental wellness, and that's a very powerful question, Jane. So I will keep it very, very short and simple. I believe there's two very important ways to do that. Very first, acknowledge the emotions. Men, I feel it's starting to shift in newer generations, younger generations, but men have been raised to absolutely just forget about their emotions, be totally blind about their emotions, except for anger. Anger is acceptable for men, or even sometimes it is encouraged. But all the other ones are like, yeah, it's it just
Yeah,
women
you're
stuff.
being a wuss for expressing yourself.
This is total bullshit. We all have emotions, and we better embrace them and respect them, acknowledge them, nurture them in beautiful ways. Actually, emotions are very powerful compasses. And I believe like depression is a very powerful compass to know what's going on and what's not working like you would like to. So very first, acknowledge your emotions, acknowledge you have emotions, and try to find the nuances between your emotions. And then exactly as Elia mentioned, communicate. Once again, it's not because you acknowledge your emotions that you're talking about your emotions. It's supposed to be very hush-hush between men, right? Men don't talk about emotions. Ooh, never. Oh, come on, we're past that. It's so 20th century. Let's move on. So yeah, and all about emotions and what's going on and opening the dialogue. I believe it's extremely important. Thank you so much for that question, Jane. And yes, I believe in that specific topic, and actually on many others, women are way ahead of men, and women really could learn from women. But yeah, it's another topic. Let's not get too deep into that. I could get all triggered and fiery. And so yeah, I'm deeply not necessarily feminist. I'm not. I don't feel that way, but I feel yes, women have a lot to learn from women, and let's create a better equality in this world. But as we are finishing our wonderful conversation, I'd love for you, Elia, to tell us what's going on, business-wise. What are you working on these days, and what are you excited the most these days?
So I am working with some of my peers in mental health and mental illness to create workbooks to process self-esteem issues and to process anxiety. And so these workbooks are like 20, 30 pages. Some of the pages are repeat pages just because you need room to figure things out and plot things down. So I am creating workbooks to help people process their emotions and their thoughts. I'm also revamping the planner very soon. Don't worry, the planner that you got is exactly the same. There's just like 2 or 3 extra pages and the cover looks different. So don't worry. Basically, we're in the version that we will be printing this year. We'll have like a hotline page. So like if you need help, here are the hotlines, and if you are found in an emergency kind of situation with the planner on here, then like there is like a section for you to like write down your emergency contact information. So that way, like if you need, like if you get in a car crash and your planner is in the car, then you have people to call for emergency if like your phone gets smashed or something like that, right? Like trying to add layers of safety. Just for example. So yeah, that's something that we're doing. On Friday, I will finally be launching trueselfcare.com instead of chartem.org. So we have been in the process the last like 2-3 months of revamping the business, rebranding the business. Like my website looks completely different, but the URL is still the old URL, and I'll finally be able to make the new URL available and accessible on Friday. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, I hope you plan a big party for that, a big launching party.
There will be
Uh,
ice cream.
Awesome. Awesome. Love that. And yeah, that's the thing. So for the people that don't have a clue about depression and how it can impact people's mind, one of the most prominent aspects is you become dull. You can't enjoy things anymore, right? You become like unable to enjoy even little pleasures and big ones even less. So that's an excellent sign when people are fighting again or dancing with depression. That they enjoy things, they show signs of savoring, enjoying excitement and stuff. It's a very good sign. And if you want to help people going through that, you definitely want to find the levels, the things that will get them back to the enjoyment side of things. And there's a very powerful, actually extremely simple, but I believe so very true way to look at life in general, coming from Buddha. That basically there are only two engines in this world for anyone: avoiding pain and happiness and getting happiness. And our entire life, we are trying to do those two, lowering the amount of pain in our life and hiring, increasing the amount of happiness. And they're actually kind of the two sides of the same coin, right? Usually when you have more happiness, you don't feel the pain that much. And when you lower the pain, you enjoy even more your current happiness. So it's extremely simple. That's it, actually. A recipe to have a fulfilled, amazing life. You just limit the pain, and whenever you have it, you learn from it and you grow from it as much as possible. And you focus on what brings you joy and fun and happiness. And that's it. Much, much, much easier said than done, granted, but still. That's it. So whenever you feel something is working, like ice cream, like watching a sunset or sunrise, literally smelling flowers,
Yeah.
touching. I know you're very how do you not physical, but yeah, you enjoy as well.
Yeah, being
Touching.
tactile. That's what I
Tactile.
call
Thank
it.
you for the word. Yeah, being tactile. Whatever works for you, whatever feeds you, whatever nurtures you towards positivity and thriving and goodness. So yeah, we have a couple of minutes left. So I don't know if we will have a last minute question. But if we don't, how would you like to close this conversation with Elia?
Sure. For those misfits out there who might be dealing with depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever it is that you happen to be diagnosed with, you're not alone. We both struggle with it, our own versions of our journeys with mental health and mental illness. You're not alone, and it's important to talk about it. It's important to share that life isn't butterflies and rainbows. It's not. It sucks and it's terrible sometimes, and sometimes we just want to go to bed and sleep for a year and then wake up and pretend that everything is okay again. And it's okay to feel that way. You're allowed to feel like crap. Now, should you feel that way all the time? No, because that's not healthy. If you feel that way all the time, you should talk to a doctor. But you're allowed to not be happy. You're allowed to feel what you need to feel in that moment. And allowing yourself to feel those emotions, to let those emotions wash over you and then wash away is healthy. And if you need to do that with someone, I'm a text away.
Love that. Thank you so much, Elia. Yeah, it's very, very inspiring. And I'd like just to add one last thing. So There's a wonderful song from the singer Kelly's I love so much, where she says, "Don't take my kindness for weakness."
Yeah.
And I feel the same. We shouldn't take our sickness for weakness. Being sick doesn't mean being weak. You don't judge yourself for getting the flu or cancer or whatever other sickness. Why should you feel weak because you have depression?
Yeah, someone with diabetes is not weak for taking insulin.
Absolutely.
If your brain doesn't produce dopamine the way it's supposed to, you're not weak for taking medicines.
Exactly.
Okay.
And good news, there are ways to get better. There are ways to cure yourself and get back to health and get back to thriving.
The good news is you're not crazy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Elia. I really enjoyed this conversation on, once again, very challenging topics, but yeah, why not? Why not having fun, enjoy with difficult topics, right? So thank you again for accepting my invitation. I hope, guys, you enjoyed this conversation.
Absolutely.
It might have been helpful to some of you, hopefully. So until next week, and see you soon. Bye-bye, guys.